Special thanks to the to today's video was brought to you by our media partner, Precision Optical Technologies. Precision Optical Technologies, optical networking redefined.
So let's start to talk a little bit about waveform analysis. And as I'm talking waveform analysis here, you have many options, whether you're looking at a live computer screen or you're looking at a stored, a live TDR shot or a stored recalled looking at your TDR waveform, or if you have one that's uploaded to either a smart device or your computer. Waveform analysis is still waveform analysis. So I'm just going to show you a basic waveform here and show you some of the different things that we need to look for when we start to analyze a waveform. Before I do that, I forgot to mention one of my favorite tools for analyzing waveforms. When it comes to analyzing waveforms, and as I said, most things are easy to find, but since a lot of people weren't trained, this is another one of those things that people did not get training on. Most TDRs, again, there's a variety of them. First of all, when you analyze a waveform, the whole purpose is to get something to stand out that is not supposed to be there. At its basic core, that's what you're looking for. So if I have a waveform that looks something like this, this represents the output pulse where the signal starts. Right here is 0 where the signal starts. And then this would represent an open at the end of the cable. It's disconnected. There's nothing there. It's just a complete open cable. If I were to take that cable and short it out, either the center conductor versus the outer, you're going to see that flip from an open to a short, and that's what you're looking at. If it's flat in the middle, technically that means there's nothing wrong with the cable, but that's before we start to analyze it. The easiest way to start to get things to appear on your cable are to use what's called the vertical gain. The vertical gain, and I've been using this analogy for years. Mike loves analogies as much as I do, so if he has a better one, I am open. The vertical gain just increases what I'm going to call the visual volume, okay? It increases the baseline, and the idea is that you're trying to get something to pop out that is not supposed to be there. Not uncommon, people will show me a waveform like this, and since they're all stuck on what it's supposed to look like, people will say, so when I get a waveform like this, I've heard that a squiggly line like that means there's water in the cable. Is that what that is? And I'm going to be a smart aleck. I was born that way. I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to say, 1,200 feet of water? I don't think so. But maybe if I decrease the vertical gain, or perhaps if I apply some filters, maybe if I can quiet down that noise floor, maybe I can get something to pop out that is not supposed to be there. Because the question that I'm going to ask you is, does anything on this line stand out from the rest? And you better say, no, it does not. Plus, it's entirely possible this could be AC. It could be induced AC, it could be RF, it could be nothing at all. Your vertical gain might be too high. Sometimes you can still increase the vertical gain and your whole line will be noisy, but I will ask you, does anything on this line stand out from the rest? And perhaps if you draw a line through the center of this, you might find out, you know what? This part stands out right here, and it's entirely possible maybe this could be where your water starts, maybe this could be where your water ends. But your vertical gain is going to be how you get things to stand out from the waveform. Now that I've done that, let's look at what a few different waveforms look like. Here I have just a regular waveform. A few things I want to point out. I have my scale on the bottom here, which shows me about the footage that I'm looking at. I can see that I have the end of the cable somewhere at about 342 feet. I can see that this was shot in a 2 nanosecond pulse width, but the first thing I want to figure out to see just how long it is, if I move my second cursor right here, you see my cursor to cursor distance change right here. So specifically, this cable is approximately 334.9 feet. And by the way, perfect measurement on any waveform is going to be on the front leading edge. I don't want you to measure at the peak of the signature. I want you to measure on the front leading edge of the signature. Okay? Now, if you just want to know an about, it's not that big a deal. But if I'm the one digging the hole, right on the front leading edge, okay? So,
Question.
as I said, yes, sir.
So on your measurement marker, marker 2, you want that on the leading edge. But I'm looking at your marker 1, and it's on the trailing edge of the pulse.
You are right. That has migrated just a little bit. So to Mike's point, and thank you for noticing that, if you're the one that's digging the hole and every pixel and every inch counts, you are correct. You're going to want to make sure that both markers are exactly on the front leading edge. Let me point something else out too, since Mike brought this up. If you're in the habit of zeroing out your jumper, let me tell you what that means. If this is your output pulse right here, and this is, let's say, your 10-foot jumper cable, and let's say I had an event over here at 100 feet, okay? Now, technically, this is my zero mark right here. Zero mark is my connector right on my TDR right here. But if I have a jumper cable that's 10 feet right here, technically, if you have an event at 100 feet, you're going to want to subtract your 10-foot marker, right? So that you're not, your 10-foot jumper, so you're not 10 feet off. Or, to the point that Mike just made, if you move your zero to right here and moved your jumper cable to this point, now you're measuring from the end of your jumper cable to the end of your cable, or the mark, or the fault that you're looking for. So for right now, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. So the way I learned was to take your launch cable or your jumper cable, connect it to your TDR, with the velocity of propagation for the cable that's going to be under test. And in most of my cases, it's been distribution feeder trunk cable.
87-ish.
You'll have an open on your TDR trace at the end of your launch cable. I was taught to move my marker 1 to the leading edge of my open at the end of my jumper cable, and then connect it to the plant that I'm testing. That way you don't have to subtract any known distances or different VOPs from your jumper cable to your test cable.
100%. 100% correct. We'll leave that at that. You're 100% correct. Now, on this one, we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it right here. But in the real world, that's what we're going to do. And the only reason I say that is because right now it's not very apparent where my jumper cable is. But we'll move on from there. Let's analyze the waveform. Now, the next question that comes in vertical gain is, what should your vertical gain be set at? The answer that I'm going to tell you is that the vertical gain itself does not matter. And I'll show you what I mean by that. The vertical gain should be however high it takes for you to get something to stand out that is not supposed to be there. It'll be easy for you to prove, and it'll be obvious when it's too little. It'll be obvious when it's too much. So from this point, this is what I'm going to start to do. Remember what I said, most things you're looking for are easy to find? As I just start to increase my vertical gain just a little bit, we can automatically tell where the trouble is or the problem is we're looking for this cable. It's somewhere right around here. Stevie Wonder can see that. It is fairly obvious that this is the problem, right? So if I just slowly start to increase my vertical gain, here's the deal. Depending on which TDR you're looking at, I'm going to ask this question of my student on the other end. Mike, is it obvious to you? First thing I want to do is I want to mark it right here, okay? And then after I mark it, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, center this. Is it obvious that this very likely could be two separate events?
This looks like it could be those two places that are fairly close together.
Yeah, and the reason I have to say very likely is because different TDRs have different programs that display it differently. But on this particular TDR, I shot this, so I know what it is. And by the way, this is two separate events. The first one is at 82.4 feet. The second one is at 89.2 feet. Now, let me tell you what this happened to be. This happened to be two dings in the hardline cable, just two dimples. And remember what I said, most things you're looking for are easy to find. This was easy to find if you know what you were doing. But understand this, I shot this in the 2 nanosecond pulse width. Can you see how if I happen to be in a 50 or a 100 nanosecond pulse width, how I might not see both of these, how it could look like one? Or if I were in a 500 nanosecond pulse width, how I might shoot over it and miss all of that. Is that obvious now?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so that's why starting off in the smallest pulse width possible is very important. So again, two dings in the hardline cable, very easy to see. Now,
Would this
let's talk about
happened to be near a golf course?
boy, it's been so many years since I shot this. I don't know what it was. That's
I have
good.
actually seen that, where if there's cable running beside a golf course, if you golf like I do, the likelihood that it's not going to land in the fairway without some help from bouncing off of either a tree or a pole or a piece of cable is pretty likely.
I've even seen the dimples of the golf ball in the cable.
That might have been me. I do hit it pretty hard. It just doesn't go straight.
That was pretty bad.
She sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.